There is one thing which stands out in your head for India to be the AI leader in the world. What would be that?
Our biggest strength is talent. Everywhere, India is regarded to be as the number one country when it comes to AI skill penetration.
On creating Indian context datasets, what is the approach and how can companies, not just Meta, but everybody else contribute to it and collaborate?
One of the key pillars under the IndiaAI Mission is the Dataset platform. And we are at a very advanced stage of building the first version of the India Dataset platform so that developers who want to use these datasets for training their models or fine-tuning the models, they will be able to do that.
How will we create an ecosystem where the market will embrace it and say, we will have Indian companies creating GPU?
While the government's initiative will be just a trigger, but ultimately hundreds of thousands of GPUs will come from with investment from the private sector.
What will make you feel happy or satisfied that whatever we have done, now India has a competitive edge over the world?
Maybe we'll need to have something which is unique to India, like a model which works well on Ayurveda, a model which works well on our manuscripts, our ancient knowledge, our tradition. So if AI tools are built to access that knowledge and unlock that, it will be something that we will not only be proud of, but we will be able to offer it to the world.
How critical is that inclusivity approach or openness to using all forms of technology and not picking and choosing?
We have always been open to accepting new technologies and deploying them without any bias. When the developers in India start building applications on the existing foundation models, their preferred choice becomes an open source solution.
What satisfies you most about what you do, about what you're dreaming, what you're envisioning for AI in India?
In a year or two, the way technology is growing, the way we talk to the Alexas of the series, we will be in a scenario wherein public services will be just a voice call away.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of AI Talks by AIM, powered by Meta. This is our attempt to bring together industry leaders, voices, influencers who are shaping India's AI ecosystem. AI, artificial intelligence, like no other technology before, holds a promise to bring innovation, create jobs, create economic value. There is no other country better than India to lead that charge, not just within the country, but across the world. Unlike the West, where some of the AI challenges are being talked about more, in India, it is the AI opportunity and the promise it holds. Our first episode is dedicated to building AI for India, where we bring together the government perspective, and no better person than Abhishek Singh, who leads the charge of India's AI mission, to tell us how the government, how the country is shaping what AI will bring to India. Abhishek, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, but after a long time on camera, I can say safely you've just come back from Paris. You were with the Prime Minister, Prime Minister's big example of the left-hand, right-hand dataset issue, the endorsement by America of AI opportunity as seen by India. If we were to talk about the leadership position that we want to take in AI, it has many pillars: governance, it has innovation, it has contribution to the startup ecosystem. But if there is one thing which stands out in your head for India to be the AI leader in the world, what would be that?
See, our biggest strength is talent. If you look at any metric, if you look at the Stanford AI Index, you look at the Tortoise report, everywhere India is regarded to be as the number one country when it comes to AI skill penetration. Our large workforce, AI trained workforce, is part of almost all key initiatives globally. If you talk about OpenAI, if you talk about Meta, if you talk about Google, if you talk about Microsoft, all these kind of companies have a significant number of Indian engineers trained in India who are working for them and who are contributing to them. Within India also, we have a very strong, vibrant ecosystem through our IITs and education institutions, which are training people in AI algorithms. If you look at GitHub, number of GitHub projects, AI GitHub projects on GitHub by country, India is amongst the top two. So that becomes our biggest strength. If we have to take leadership, of course, if we look at research, we would be much behind the US and the China. So we will need to invest more in research, we'll need to kind of address other gaps that are there in our AI ecosystem, like, for example, access to compute. So some of these gaps have been identified by the government, and we are under India AI Mission are taking steps to address that. We did finalize a tender for making access to compute possible. So around 18,000 GPUs have been kind of assured. And in the next 3 months, you'll be getting more bids for getting compute available. And once that happens, I think we'll be able to catch up with the top countries globally in the field of AI.
Correct. You've ticked off the two most critical ones, which is talent and infrastructure. I'll go deeper into the infrastructure piece, but let me understand the governance of this ecosystem is as critical. And I think the Prime Minister not only endorsed the way open source technologies will help democratic societies, leading to more empowerment. In the governance framework, there is no clear leader yet. And yet India's utterances at least are seen to be a leadership one. How do you see that play out across the world? I mean, not just within India, but India's role in governance of AI across the world.
See, that primarily stems from the fact that India is one country which has actually showed to the world how technology can be used for empowering people, how technology can be used for improving governance per se. So whether it's our identity project, or whether it's our digital payments, whether it's the DEPA architecture, the DigiLocker, or the projects which we have implemented in healthcare, education, all sectors, that has showed that how tech projects at scale can be implemented. And when that happens, people do realize that if AI applications are to be developed, so AI, there are several components. One is infrastructure, of which the compute is dominated by a few companies in a few countries. But if you go deeper down, ultimately to monetize all the investments in AI, you will need to build applications and you'll need to deploy them at scale. So one country which has actually succeeded in doing so, technological solution deployment at scale, is India. So people do feel that when AI is added to that, ultimately AI will not be something which will be distinct from the technological applications or DPI that we have built. AI will add and make DPI solutions more accessible, and more our reach will go. Like, for example, voice-enabled services will come in. And when voice-enabled services will come in, just imagine that in India, currently we talk about 900 million people accessing online services. The rest 500 people, there are more 500 people who are there. If they are able to talk in their mother tongue, if they are able to ask a query, a farmer is able to ask a query in his mother tongue about where can he get the best fertilizer, or what crop he should sow, or where he should sell his produce, or a mother can ask a bot with regard to what she should do if her child is having diarrhea or some basic ailment, and get a reply back in the mother tongue. That would be really empowering, and that would add to value creation when it leads to AI. That's why the world looks at India as an example which will build applications, which will train it on Indian datasets, and will deploy at scale, which can again be replicated globally.
So inclusivity is the theme that you're talking about. And I remember about 2-3 years ago, you showed me a voice-enabled example of claiming insurance by farmers. Now, you've been tinkering with this for a long time. And one of the reasons we feel very good is the journey together for us has been Meta's approach to some of these technologies. And what I have really admired in the way you've approached it is to say, look, the world is my oyster, so Vasudev Kutumbakam, I will be an inclusive approach. How critical is that inclusivity approach or openness to using all forms of technology and not picking and choosing, unlike some of our neighbors on the eastern side, so critical to India's mission on AI?
See, like, we have always been open to accepting new technologies and deploying them without any bias. So, and AI has been such that the initial starters have been the American companies, whether it's OpenAI or Meta. And there also what we find is that ultimately when the developers in India start building applications on the existing foundation models, their preferred choice becomes an open source solution, not only because working with an open source solution is easier because you are able to understand how it works, but more importantly, cost-wise also it's economical. And ultimately, the real value will come when you will be able to deploy it. For deployment, you will need to see at what price point you are offering. And India is a market which is very price sensitive. People are not normally willing to pay a high value for something which they can alternatively get for free. So that way, we are open to all technologies. We are learning from them, as also we are trying to build our own technological solutions, our own models, so that the gaps that are there in the existing models, whether open source or proprietary, especially not being tuned on Indian datasets, not being trained in Indian context, that issue can be addressed. And once we build a solution which is trained on Indian datasets, ultimately this will flow to the other models also. Yes. There's no reason to believe that Llama 3 or ChatGPT will always not have the Indian context. They would also work on it because they see India as a big use case. They also see India as a place where they will deploy their solutions.
It's a two-way street. Eventually, it's a two-way street.
And they would also ultimately, all of them want their solutions to be as inclusive and to factor in local context. The challenge is that they can do only as much data sets are available. If we make data sets available in all languages, if we make contextual digitized data sets available, then those models will also become more efficient, become more bias free, and more useful.
I think very nicely you've talked about talent, you've talked about hard infrastructure, but the whole dataset piece, the Indian context dataset piece, how is the government viewing it? As I said, this is the first episode where we are looking at government's role into this. You've rolled out very aggressive initiatives on creating GPU capacity, etc. On creating Indian context datasets, what is the approach, and how can companies, not just Meta, but everybody else contribute to it and collaborate?
See, in fact, one of the key pillars under the IndiaAI mission is the datasets platform. And we are at a very advanced stage of building the first version of the India datasets platform. And it will become like an aggregator, which will have datasets from the government as also the private sector, becoming available on one common platform in an AI usable form through APIs, so that developers who want to use these datasets for training their models or fine-tuning the models, they will be able to do that. We are going to launch this platform very soon, hopefully before the end of this month, and that will have the initial datasets from a few departments and a few private sector partners also.
That exact approach, Abhishek, how does this translate now into what needs to be solved or built on these datasets? Is there a kind of a guiding principle that you have? Look, I have the most egregious problem, let's go in for it first. Or you're letting companies decide, let the market force decide which is the biggest problem we need to solve using AI?
See, ultimately, a lot of solutions will come from startups and from businesses who will see an economic opportunity in using these datasets to build solutions that they can monetize. But over and above that, we are working with various government departments to identify problem statements which are solvable by using AI. And for example, we launched an innovation challenge a few months back, which included 14 problem statements across 5 themes. The themes included healthcare, agriculture, climate change, governance, and learning disabilities. And we got almost 900 solutions, 900 applications. Out of that, we have shortlisted 30 of the top solutions across these 5 themes. And these solutions will then be given to the concerned ministries for scaling up and deploying it. For example, there's a solution wherein AI can be used to diagnose tuberculosis, or AI can be used to diagnose cancer. So these solutions, since they are meeting a certain benchmark, the ICMR and the Ministry of Health, they are looking at it. And if such solutions can be deployed in all primary health centers, that would be the real value that will come in. Today only we launched a hackathon along with Bhashini, which is again one of our initiatives for building AI applications which can be deployed in police stations for making case diaries, for expediting investigations,
and across the country.
Across the country in all languages, 13 languages. We have partnered with the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel National Police Academy, and today incidentally was International Mother's Day. So we thought that let's launch it today. So it has been launched today, and we will expect some startups and developers to build solutions to that. Last week, we completed a hackathon on with I4C, which uses AI to classify various cyber complaints that they get. They get a lot of cybercrime complaints every day. Around 7,000 complaints are received every day, to segregating them in various buckets, whether they relate to financial crimes or whether they relate to stalking or whether they relate to any other aspect, data theft, and then give it to the concerned police officials so that investigations can be expedited. So we are looking to partnering with all Government of India departments and state governments to source problem statements and ensure that these data sets related to these problem statements are made available for developing these solutions.
So it will be an interesting conversation to have for us as a company and in general with the government to say, okay, what kind of models are being deployed? Which brings me to the question of the self-sufficiency argument. And I know the Honorable Minister talked about that within a few months, we'll have our own foundational model. While it is still linked to the critical hard infrastructure question in a second, which I will come to, but can you help us understand self-sufficiency while being pragmatic and being open to any global offering, or self-sufficiency by saying complete self-reliance? There is a big difference.
No, we have never been of that philosophy. We have always said that we will encourage Indian companies and Indian startups to build Indian solutions, especially foundation models. But till such time that is developed, we are open to using any global solution for fine tuning them, for doing inferencing and building applications on top of that. And currently, many of the applications which are being trained on the existing models which are there. And while we are open to using them, but we are also trying to ensure that we invest enough resources into building Indian foundation model, because we do believe that we do have the capability and there is no reason we should not build.
No, absolutely. And as you rightly said, the data source is all here. I mean, if you have like 900 million Indians connected through mobile technologies, why not? Help me understand. So you articulated the high impact projects, so like the 30 that you have shortlisted. Uh, do you see the government's role kind of petering out after a while, or do you see the government being the driving force till India acquires that competitive edge and leadership position and governance leadership?
See, government will kind of trigger the whole adoption. Like, even if you look at the digital public infrastructure, it was kind of incubated by the government. And then, like, for example, when Aadhaar was built, or when UPI was built, or when DigiLocker APIs were given, it led to a whole fintech boom. So while the basic building blocks were provided by the government, the real applications which are actually impacting, whether it's a Zerodha or a Paytm or a PhonePe, these are built by private sector entrepreneurs, and we see more and more of it happening in every sector. In AI also, the idea is the same thing. The basic building blocks, whether it's access to compute or whether it's access to data sets, these will be provided by the government, and on top of it, applications will be developed by the private sector. And there also, even when we are identifying the problem statement, we are identifying the problem statement, but it's not that NIC or CDAC is building the solution. They can also, but we are making it open to our startup community, to our entrepreneurs, to build high impact solutions and then deploying them at scale.
Let's talk about the hard infrastructure, the whole GPU capacity. India's surpassing the initial target and going to what, 18,000 GPUs now. Where is the government role in that? Because unlike India, in the West, it is not the government which triggers that. Why so in India's case? And secondly, how will we create an ecosystem where the market will embrace it and say, we will have Indian companies creating GPU? Right now, they're contributing to the government mission.
See, like already it's happening, because when IndiaAI Mission was approved last year, and we said that we'll set up a compute infrastructure of a minimum of 10,000 GPUs, because it was felt that access to compute is one of the bottlenecks which many of our companies are facing. So we said that we will say minimum 10,000, but 10,000 is not sufficient for a country of our size and magnitude. And immediately, the moment it was announced, the moment we started floating tenders and we started working on the nitty-gritties, we saw private sector investment pick up, and we saw Yota placing orders even before we finalized our tenders. But we structured the tender in such a way that it does not disincentivize anyone who is taking up the investments in advance. So that way it was designed to encourage investments in the private sector. And today what we are hearing, in fact, when Jensen Huang of NVIDIA was in Bombay in September last year, then Jio announced setting up a 1 gigawatt data center with them. And I believe they are setting up compute infrastructure with them. Ola Krutrim, they are also procuring GPUs from NVIDIA and other AMD and deploying them. So we do feel that while the government's initiative will be just a trigger, but ultimately hundreds of thousands of GPUs will come from with the investment from the private sector.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, Indian government is unique. That is igniting the hunger. It's igniting that fire in the belly for people and then helping create the ecosystem, something which India has lacked for many, many years, but you guys seem to be doing a great job. How does it convert into a competitive edge for the world? What will make you feel happy or satisfied that whatever we have done, now India has a competitive edge over the world?
See, ultimately, we will need to have a foundation model. We'll need to have a few Indian foundation models trained on Indian context, trained in Indian sets. Maybe we'll need to have something which is unique to India, like a model which works well on Ayurveda, a model which works well on our manuscripts, our ancient knowledge, our tradition, because very often we also, Indians, having studied in the system, we know that there are Vedas and Upanishads which have got a lot of knowledge, but very often we don't have access to that because it's not available in digitized form, and we cannot read them or understand them or follow them. So if AI tools are built to access that knowledge and unlock that, and especially use it for other Indian forms of medicine and other aspects, it will be something that we will not only be proud of, but we will be able to offer it to the world. And ultimately, it will lead to other countries also using these data sets for training these models. And ultimately, it will lead to Indian solutions being deployed globally.
Yeah, but does it make it imperative? And again, it may sound like I'm trying to ask a question of for you to choose between the basic principle of open source versus proprietary, but the mission of having a competitive edge is actually the underlying theme is open source technology, because you would definitely want Indian technologies to contribute to the rest of the world as well.
Obviously, it will do that. But our principle has always been that we encourage and we support open source technologies, but it's not that we mandate open source. We allow for both flavors, and ultimately, depending on the use case, the end users or the developers, they may decide to offer a solution with an open source backbone or with a proprietary one. And ultimately, in this whole race, the solutions which are more efficient and the solutions which are more economical will win, irrespective of the fact whether they're using open source or proprietary.
Eventually, the startups and the user has to see value, and
Correct.
Depending on, so eventually the marketplace will decide. Let me touch upon one critical thing while you talked about talent. There is definitely an opportunity, a bit of a challenge, but an opportunity on reskilling, where the government is taking some initiatives. We are a part of some of the initiatives as well. But on the reskilling space, do you have any thoughts from a government perspective?
See, reskilling is something that we are very, very concerned about. And we do realize that while on one hand, AI has a great opportunity, but AI also, since it will result in a lot of productivity gains. So the real value of AI is making everyone more efficient, making everyone more productive, and making everyone be able to do their jobs in lesser time and be able to ultimately contribute more. But when that happens, and if the job of, say, 3 coders is done by 1 coder, then you have to wonder what you do with 2 coders.
You code more.
You code more, but you'll have to create that opportunity. But there will be some need to kind of enhance their skills. Maybe they will need to move up to doing something which new jobs that will emerge. Because if people doing low value jobs, if number of such people are required are lesser, then some of them will have the risk of losing their jobs if they don't acquire AI skills. And very often it is said that AI will not away take jobs. People with AI skills will take away the jobs of people without AI skills. So therein the reskilling piece becomes very, very important. How do we ensure that everybody gets to understand how AI works? Everybody acquires AI skills. Everybody learns how to use AI in their work to become more productive. And that happens, then we'll see a huge economic opportunity. Like if a street vendor, for example, starts using such technologies and becomes more efficient in his operations, he is able to plan his procurement of raw materials, his market better, his product component better by using data with regard to what his sales been and all. So that, and if his incomes go up, then it will really lead to the middle pyramid in India. Like, for example, we have a top 100 million people who are doing very well. And then there are bottom 100 million people who depend on all government doles. But in between, there are 700 to 800 million people. And if these people become more productive and their incomes go up, then that will ultimately contribute to India's dreams of becoming a developed economy in the
so eventually economic opportunity.
Yes.
And that's the moment we have to seize, right?
Correct. And AI has to contribute to that. AI has to make everybody more efficient, more productive, and be able to generate more value in the time that is there.
So interesting that you say that, because the Prime Minister touched upon it, saying technology has never really eroded economic value. It has always created economic value. Let me ask you, this will require this kind of creation of economic opportunity, or the mammoth size that you're talking about will need some harmonization across the borders of how AI works. While democracy is one good principle to say, okay, with democratic societies will work, but we have seen there is overemphasis on clamping down, regulation, etc. The message that we got from the Prime Minister, how did you see it? The harmonization, some form of global framework, like the way we used to have peace treaties. You already have AI summits for AI treaties. What's your pulse on that?
See, like ultimately the nature of this technology is such that it's global. You have most foundation models developed in a few geographies. Then you have the applications developed in other geographies, and ultimately users and in some other geography. So any global governance, any governance framework for AI will necessarily have to be global. You cannot just have a sovereign EU act and think that everybody will comply with that. So we don't subscribe to that way of regulation. We do feel that we do need to regulate AI in such a way that we are able to limit user harm, but at the same time not kill innovation. So our principle has been that, and that you would have seen evolving even in the theme of these safety summits. Like Bletchley, when it happened in 2023, they highlighted safety security as the major concern. But by the time we reached Korea, the Korea summit, and many countries, including India, they emphasized that while safety security is important, innovation and building applications and positive use cases are also important. So in Seoul summit was branded as safety and innovation summit. And by the time we came to Paris, the French called it the Action Summit. The word safety was, in a way, became part of one of the working groups. They had 5 working groups that cut across issues of governance, issues of public interest, issues of trust in AI, issues of future of work, and of culture and innovation. So these 5 working groups kind of expanded the scope in the Paris summit, kind of showed that AI is much more than only issues of safety security. Safety security are important, but they are not the only focus area. And that is what we also believe in. And by the time we host the summit, we'll further take it down and we'll try to see how much impact AI has made in the lives of common people and on the economies of countries.
This is hugely exciting. And maybe what you summarize also reflects the geopolitics of the world today. I mean, the way some of the speeches played out in Paris, it really looked like the transition was so critical. And I think India has that big opportunity. If I may ask you, like, what is your vision for the India AI Summit? I know you have some exciting ideas without revealing much of the confidential piece, but what should we look forward to? Paris was, I saw thematic issues like how art is being helped using AI. What is your grand vision?
See, ultimately, it will follow down on our overall principles that our Prime Minister outlined very well in the G20 summit that we hosted, which kind of the theme was Vasudhara Kutumbakam and how do we kind of take the world together. And tech was a big focus, digital public infrastructure was a big focus. And we kind of showed that how technology can be used to not only improve governance, but share knowledge across. So our summit will also have the key major themes. The issues of AI will be there, the issues of governance, the issue of building applications, the issues of access, the issues of future of work, the issues of innovation. All those issues will be there. But in addition, we will also focus on how AI can be democratized more, how AI can be taken to low and medium income countries, how the countries of the global south can benefit, how we can collaborate better with each other. So those things will become part of our focus areas. We will be forming the working groups soon. We will be inviting experts, scientists, companies, startups to join those working groups, contribute to the ideas, and plan the summit.
So clearly you won't have much time this year and early 2026 to begin with.
Our teams are always overworked and they will have to probably do more.
In the world of AI, maybe we should deploy
Yes.
more AI to increase productivity.
Yes.
Before I let you go, I want to kind of go towards what makes you sleep well in the world of AI. Like, what satisfies you most about what you do, about what you're dreaming, what you're envisioning for AI in India?
See, ultimately, I do believe that in a maybe a year or two, we'll have a lot of voice-enabled services. Because whenever I look at agriculture solution, like for example, the eNaam portal, which has got mandi prices from all mandis and all crops and all are there, you can go to a website, you can browse it, you can search it. There's an app also where you can do. But I always wonder if a farmer is given this app, web portal or an app, what will he do? Will he be able to use? I'm sure he will not be. But if the same app had an interface where he can go and say, Agra mein bajre ki कीमत क्या है, Agra mandi mein bajre ki कीमत क्या चल रही है, in his mother tongue, and he gets the reply back. Again, though, we have technologies which does speech to text, and text can go to an LLM, pull that information from these datasets which are there and give that answer. So that would really, really be empowering. So I do feel that in a year or two, the way technology is growing, the way we talk to the Alexas and the Siris, we will be in a scenario wherein public services will be just a voice call away, and more and more people will be able to use them.
I mean, again, from a company perspective, we see that the footprint of apps like WhatsApp, etc., if such powerful applications can be built within that, given the reach, etc., one would hope that this would really empower people as we move forward.
Yeah, in fact, I'm thinking beyond WhatsApp. I'm thinking even people who have a feature phone user phone.
Absolutely.
They should be able to call a toll-free number, and they should be able to just say
Hear it
that
out,
this is I want. बच्चे को क्या देना है 10 story है, and he should get back कि ये करना है, मतलब immediately.
Like primary healthcare
And preventive healthcare can be so awesome. And half the problems the governance we have in our country is because of information asymmetry. People just don't know the basic information. Smart people have access to tools, they have access to internet, they have access to devices with which they can search, and they have access to Gen AI tools, and they will go and find. But the common people who don't have access to connectivity or don't have access to high-end phones, smartphones, or don't have the ability to do that, they struggle. And they spend a lot of time and resources in trying to find answers to basic questions.
So in the quest of us becoming smarter and more efficient, do you at all worry what will happen to the majority of the population which will not become smart or efficient?
It will happen because if the AI tools that we are developing and the AI tools that the industry is developing will ultimately make things so efficient that everybody will start adopting it. And it will democratize access to information and knowledge. In a way, the advantage that we have, the so-called elites and the so-called educated people have, that will kind of equalize. And even a person who has not had the benefit of going to a high-end public school or to a university, he will also probably have the access to the same information and knowledge, and he will be able to compete with the best, and he'll be able to contribute to because he has basic intelligence and he has basic ways of using these tools. So these tools, assistants, agents, whatever you may call it, will ultimately democratize knowledge and will make the larger masses be able to contribute much more.
I'm sure you're the right guy to lead that and make that happen. But before I let you go, some form of rapid fire. But I want to start with a bit of a different one. When we talk to people and you talk to people across different societies, if I may ask, people say, hey, AI kya hai? In one word, if you were to explain to the regular Joe, what is AI?
It's a tool. It's an assistant which helps you in finding out information.
In one word, India's AI potential in the world.
Potential yet to be realized.
Biggest misconception about AI?
That it's anything different than regular technology.
One problem AI must solve for India?
Healthcare.
India's strongest AI opportunity, global leadership or domestic impact?
Domestic impact.
2030, more hopeful or more complex?
More hopeful.
Fabulous. Always an optimist. Abhishek, always a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for doing this. And I'm sure people will be more educated about the world of AI and your mission and the government's role in it. Thanks for doing this episode with us.